Hey guys, Iron Wolf here. I have another Hyrule Conquest video I wanted to share with you guys. It's been a long time since I uploaded anything, so I just wanted to get this out to you guys as soon as I could. I haven't really made anything about 0.4 aside from reviewing patch notes from the balance changes in the last factions. I haven't made any videos regarding Ordana and Lanayru yet. I have some in the works that will be coming out hopefully soon. So that should be coming sometime within the next week or two. I also want to apologize about my mic. I have a new microphone that I ordered and it's coming in the mail, so that should be coming soon as well. So today I just wanted to talk about my tier list, my competitive multiplayer tier list for Hyrule Conquest version 0.4. I've talked about this in my Discord server and other Discord servers about tier list-ish things in the past, about how I would rank the factions, but I kind of wanted to make this little graphic here. It's not very good. As you can see, I kind of just slapped some logos on there where I thought each faction was, but it does give a kind of a good idea of where every faction is, in my opinion, relative to each other in the game right now, because I have been kind of no-lifing the game just in a hyperbolic time chamber, you know, just grinding it and just figuring out what's good with every faction since the changes and everything. So I'll start from the top and work my way down. I will talk about each faction in detail. So first, we have Ordana. I believe Ordana to be the strongest faction in the game right now. This is due to the fact that they have an extremely strong economy, they have extremely high sustainability, they have a strong middle and early game. Their late game is weaker than their middle and early game, but it can keep up. It can keep up with some of the other factions. But their middle and early game are very, very strong. The early game due to their strong economy, and their middle game or their mid game is due to the fact that they can get their elite units out during the mid game, and their late game units are stronger than most factions' mid game units, if that makes sense. This faction is extremely powerful. As you know, the biggest thing that stands out about them is the fact that all their non-mechanical units can gather. It's extremely powerful. They can get, if played correctly, you can get over or at least 100 population in under 10 minutes, which is extremely, extremely strong. The only faction that can do that is the Goma, but the Goma do that due to the population cap glitch, which you all probably know about. And also, the thing with the Goma is that their early game is the only time when they're strong. They fall off very hard after that, and their economy is really only strong within the first 10 to 15 minutes of the game anyway. So Ordana plays very similar to the Goma, however, they do have strong mid to late game and strong sustainability into the later parts of the game. So that they're definitely, in my opinion, the strongest faction. They don't lose any matchups really. The Goma are a tougher matchup for them, but that doesn't matter too much. The Kokiri are also kind of rough for them. Well, it's not rough, but I would say that matchup's close to even. But I still think Ordana still has a slight edge, just due to their sustainability. They have so many resources that they can gather in such a short period of time that they can really survive any kind of attack and come back from losing pretty much any amount of soldiers. Another thing too, due to the fact that all their units can gather, their armies essentially pay for themselves, which is very, very, very good, because you can just have them working and never idle. So that's very good. So I definitely think they're the best faction in the game. Second best, good old Kokiri. This faction has never been bad. They've always been within the top tier when it comes to this game. I think they are not as good as Ordana due to the fact that their economy, while strong, is still just above average. Ordana has an extremely strong economy, while the Kokiri's economy is just above average. The Kokiri have the strongest early game between them and Ordana, as far as playing aggressive goes, and their mid game is very strong as well. But they really fall off after the early game, or after the mid game, really hard. While Ordana, on the other hand, stays very strong, like very above average in the late game. While the Kokiri during the late game really don't have any tools to handle a lot of the more defensive factions in the late game, while Ordana does, due to the fact that they have such high sustainability. Deku Trees is still extremely powerful. Saria, not as good as she used to be, but still very powerful. Definitely an aggressive faction, more of a mid-range faction though, I would say. Not mid-range as far as like their units, mid-range as far as like they're at their strongest during that bridge between early to mid game. So they're definitely very strong. They don't really lose any matchups outside of the Gorons. Might be tough for them now, at least. Ordana, they don't win that matchup, and then they kind of go even with the Zora in my opinion. But besides that, they have a pretty good matchup spread. All right, next we move on. Those are the SS tier. Like these are the definitive. These are the best factions right here. If you want to win at the highest level, you play these two. It's these you can win with any faction in this game if played right. But these two right here are definitely the easiest and best, or not easiest, but the best. Ordana is actually a little tricky. I was gonna say because of how much you have going on at once with Ordana, they're actually a very tricky faction. You have to have a lot more micro than you would with some of these other factions. And moving down to S tier, we have the Goma. You already know they've pretty much stayed mostly the same. They're just not broken anymore. They're still a very strong high tier faction. They're very aggressive. They can still pump out massive amounts of larvae and rush with that. They can do caretakers. They can do all sorts of crazy things with that. Very strong heroes like Agatha, Solcaris, not Mido, the other one, I forget her name. The Goma Broodmother, her name escapes me, but she's also good as well. This faction still, like I said, has stayed remotely in the same place. They're good, and they don't lose a lot of matchups, but they're a little bit of a gimmick. I don't want to say, their gimmick is extremely strong, because having to fight off 100 larvae at the 10-minute mark is very, very scary, or close to 100 larvae. But the thing is if you don't go for game within the first 12 minutes, then you've pretty much already lost, because as you approach the mid game and especially the late game, the Goma don't really have the tools, they don't have the economy, and they don't have the units to keep up with all the other factions. So, like I said, they're kind of a gimmick, but their gimmick is extremely strong, like I said. But that's why I don't think they're SS tier anymore. I definitely think they're S tier, because they do lose some matchups. Next is the Zora. Very, very good, solid faction. Like the Kokiri, they've never been bad. Very mid to late game heavy. Their early game is very defensive. Their magic units, of course, are still very strong, because they're one of the few factions that still utilize magic units. So that's really good. And I'm trying to think if really anything else. Their damage has been nerfed, and some of the units are not as strong as they used to be, so they're not like I said, SS tier like the Goma. Really, the only faction. These two have moved down from SS tier. The previous SS tier, in my opinion, was just the definitive trinity of this game: Kokiri, Zora, Goma. They counter pretty much each other in different ways. It's like a triangle. But I think these two factions have moved down due to Nephalim cooling down the jets on these factions. They were a little nutty, but now they're just strong, in my opinion. So I moved them both down to S tier. A tier, we have Lanayru Province and the Gorons. Keep in mind, these four factions down here in the lower half are not bad. They're just not on the level of these ones. These are not bad factions, so you can do not let this tier list deter you from playing these factions. Just let it. I want it to give you clarity on like what faction you should play if you're trying to play, a competitive multiplayer match. So in A tier we have Lanayru Province. I think this is a very strong faction, very mid-rangey, similar to the Kokiri, although they're more defensive and more economy-based. I would say they're a passive version of the Kokiri. Their mid-game very strong because their beast units are very strong, probably one of the strongest mid-games. Their early game isn't strong, but it's not bad. It's very similar to the Zora. The best way I could describe this faction is a mix of the Kokiri and the Zora, but toned down a lot more. They have once you like get to about, I want to say the 10-minute. Once you get to about the 10-minute mark, yeah, they become an extremely powerful economy-based faction. Not quite to the same level as Ordana, but they do become an economy powerhouse, pumping out rupees and other materials really fast and powerful. I would say in a 1v1 scenario, I say they're A tier. In a team scenario, whether it's 2-2, 3-3, or anything like that, I think they move up to S tier for sure, because they can definitely provide a lot of support to teams. They have really good synergies with a lot of these factions. For example, the Gorons teaming with Llanero, for example, can help them get out their win condition a lot sooner due to their economy. So that's really good. Then the Gorons, we'll talk about them real quick. So the Gorons have stayed mostly the same, except they have that new form of base building with the plot system. I think it's good. I think their general game plan still stays the same though, which is just turtle, play defensive till you can get to tier 3 and get your win cons out. Their mid game got a lot stronger. They got a big buff in their mid game, so they can still compete in the mid game. But their early game they still struggle in the early game. Not as bad, nowhere close to as bad as they used to. But they still struggle a little bit because they can get rushed. But they still have ways around it. They still have ways to play a very strong defense in the early game and get to the mid. And once you get to the mid game, you can start poking a little bit more. Going for a couple raids here and they're playing a little aggressive, but not too much. But thanks to like I said, the buffs to their mid tier units or their mid range units, they can still do that pretty well. And then of course their late game is one of the strongest, if not the strongest in the game, up there with the Zora. It depends on the map though. It's very map dependent, which I will talk about the new map in a second. So come down here to B tier. These factions, I think, while they're good, the biggest thing they struggle with is I'll talk about Hyrule first. Hyrule's not a bad faction. Hyrule has no significant weaknesses, but they have no significant strengths either. This has kind of been how they've played since the beginning. They're a very well-rounded faction. They don't particularly win many matchups, really, amongst any of the factions in the game, but they don't get hard countered by anything. The only thing I can think of that they would get hard countered by is maybe the Goma, since Kazak can't one-shot their workers anymore. They might struggle in that. They can get rushed a little bit easier now. Maybe Kokiri as well. The big thing that I would say about Hyrule is that they're just a beefy Ordana. And what I mean by that is they play very similar, but Ordana has better quality units and a worse economy, while Ordana has a stronger economy and lesser quality units. And economy, of course, in my opinion, is a lot better. I think these two factions complement each other very well. If you were to play them in a team match, if you were to do like Ordana Hyrule, I think that would be very, very powerful actually. Because, like I said, a lot of their things complement each other, and they would cover a lot of each other's weaknesses. So that's something to keep in mind for team synergies if anybody ever decides to mess around with more 2v2 stuff. So that's why I think Hyrule is in the B tier. And then the Gerudo. So the Gerudo are very weird right now. I would say they're the weakest faction probably just because there are a few matchups that they lose really, really hard. Like Goma, Kokiri, they're not very good versus the Hylians. Or Llaneyru's, they're okay against. So they don't really win many matchups, but the nice thing about them is that they are a hard counter to magic due to the Serpent Slayer unit with, what's her name, Naburu. So they actually, in my opinion, they hard counter the Zora. Like, that is a very, very difficult matchup for the Zora. They lose to Ordana pretty hard, and they do decently well against the Gorons as well, in my opinion. So they pretty much, in my opinion, lose every other matchup in the game, though. So that's the unfortunate thing about the Gerudo. I would say that they're B tier solely because they lose, out of 7 matchups, they lose 4 of them pretty significantly. But the 2 that they win by a lot. Like this matchup, Gerudo Gorons, I would say is like 6-4, 7-3 maybe in the Gerudo's favor, probably 6-4. And then against the Zora, I would say it's 8-2. I don't know if it's quite 9-1 because the Zora can still do some things to beat it. But if you let the Gerudo get to tier 3 in this matchup, you've basically lost. So that is a very difficult matchup for the Zora. So that is their main use. They're mainly a counterpick faction if you just can't deal with these two defensive late game factions. But besides that, their mid game is very lackluster. Their early game is very lackluster. It's not lackluster actually. It's more just it's too straightforward. It's too basic. It's too honest on it actually. It's too honest. There's too honest play right there. Like when you play the Gerudo during the mid and early game, their stuff isn't bad. it's like the Highlands. Their stuff isn't bad, but it's not amazing. Like, it's not good enough to compete with some of the other mid-tier, or mid-range, or gosh, I keep saying mid-range and mid-tier constantly. Mid-game units that some of the other factions have. But that's just my opinion. I'm sure you can talk to some other good players that will tell you otherwise. But that is my opinion on that. On the Gerudo, I still think they can work, like I said, in these matchups. But besides that, I think I would say they're probably still in the lower tier of the factions. Now, keep in mind, like I said earlier, B tier does not mean they are bad. They just do not have the glaring, obvious strengths that some of these factions up here have. I still think all the factions in the game are viable at a competitive level. I think you can win with any of the factions in the game. The only ones, like I said, Gerudo, you can't be a solo Gerudo player just because you lose some matchups so hard. So, for example, if you wanted to be a really good Gerudo player, you might need to pick up a faction or learn another faction that can cover some of these bad matchups if you were playing in a long set or something. But that's just my opinion. If you guys have any questions or anything about my tier list, be sure to ask in the comments or join my Discord. I'll have it linked in the description. You can come in there. We can talk about it, discuss. You can give me your opinions. I'll listen to them. I would love to have a discussion with you guys about it. But this is kind of my thoughts as of 0.4. This may change because, like I said, 0.4 is still relatively new. But yeah, this is pretty much it for my tier list video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm sorry it's taken me a while to get this video out. I teased it in Discord yesterday, so I'm glad I could get it out today, like I said I would. But until then, I'll see you guys later.